Welcome on into the baseline. Joining me as always is Hartford head coach Chris Smith, Travis Wilson, brother of myself. Guys, the basketball season is over and done with, 2025-26. The season is finite. Boys basketball was this past weekend. We were all there. We all had a good time. We got to enjoy the last 3 days of basketball. Chris, how's your hip?
Really, we're just gonna start off with that.
Right with the bang.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little stiff. A lot of walking this last weekend, so might have to start parking a little closer to buildings sometime soon.
Trav, Friday night, Chris told me, he goes, I might be getting a sweet handicap parking spot. And I'm like, why? And he goes on about his hip. And I'm like, you guys are giving me so much flack about my knee. And you're going to bring this up?
Well, notice, Travis, that I never once brought it up on air, did I? I kept that to myself because, it's not something that the whole world necessarily needs to hear about. But,
no, I'm 10 years older than both of you, so I don't want to hear it. But I'll tell you what.
I legitimately need a hip replacement. Colton just woke up one morning and said his knee hurts. Let's get real here.
Nobody's tuning in for Chris's hip as much as they were tuning in for Colton's knee, so let's move on.
I think you'd be surprised the amount of people that wanted more knee talk. That's all I could hear at the Kohl Center. Yeah, but hopping into it, state basketball's come and gone. Good state tournament. Let's just start right out with that attendance. The attendance was up. Let's talk about maybe reasons why that was. Trav, you have the full breakdown of the attendance? You posted the full breakdown. Let's not just go session by session. Let's just overall. Do you know what attendance was up from past years to this year? What were we looking at?
Well, this number will go up because it always goes up slightly from suite sales, and the Saturday night number they got me was during the D2 game, and there was maybe a few that would have trickled in for D1 that hadn't paid yet. So, long story short, it was very positive for the WIAA. If you look at the sessions, 5 of the 7 sessions had their best attendance since before COVID, which is kind of when everything really went downhill significantly. State tournament attendance for basketball had not recovered and still hasn't recovered since before COVID. Before COVID, going to the schedule that we're in now, average attendance was in the 80 to 85,000 range for the 3 days. After COVID, it was 57, 64, 71, 63. This year up over 71,000. It'll probably be 71.5, somewhere in that range for total attendance. Which again is not where it had been, but given all the factors that we deal with now, positive momentum, certainly after a few down years. And, it was, in some ways, it was a little bit of a perfect storm for the WIAA in terms of attendance, right? Or just fans in general, because I think everybody would like to see a well-attended state tournament. You had a number of new faces that hadn't been there before, or maybe hadn't been there for a while. You had some really strong attendance for teams that were very close to Madison Memorial, McFarland, Lake Mills, Cambridge, all within Dane County. Lake Mills actually isn't, but they're just outside Dane County. So you had some good local programs. You had relatively few private schools, which good, bad, indifferent. Private schools generally draw a little bit lower than some of the small town public schools do. You had some small town public schools that brought the whole town, shut town down. And you had good weather. You had some good individual players with obviously Dooney Johnson and Xavier Zenz and the Knipples, the Conan brothers. You had kind of that star power to bring in some additional average, general non-affiliated type fans. Very good weather. The Badgers lost their first game, so you weren't competing with them on Saturday. It just all set up for a positive attendance at the state tournament, and we got the best one we've seen since 2019.
Yeah, new teams, local teams, and a mixture of that talent and weather. It felt like it was more crowded, and then, those D4 and D5 schools brought people. I mean, Cambridge's section was just ginormous both days. Reedsville, Southwestern, Prentice, Sheboygan Lutheran, those communities all showed out at the Cole Center.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Reedsville, right? I mean, that's a town of 471 people, right? I think there was 471 fans there.
At least.
I mean, it was awesome to see that. Like, I was actually thinking about that. I'm like, man, like, there's nobody in Reedsville right now. 0 people.
Whole town shut down.
Yeah, it's like when you see in the movies with like the small town, like Friday nights for football, and like they all follow the bus to the game, you know. And like seriously, that's what it kind of like reminded me of. It was really cool to see that. And what an exciting, it was just an exciting. The first half of that championship game for D5 was really, really fun to watch. I know we'll get more into it, but
yeah, before we do hop into it, we're gonna kind of review the whole weekend. I want to talk about our presenting sponsor, Bound. A lot of state tournament coverage came out this weekend on boundwisconsin.com. We had semifinal write-ups. We had championship write-ups. We've still got all conference teams that are yet to come. And then some postseason stuff that we'll talk about stat leaders across the state. We'll talk about coaching changes. We'll get into a lot of stuff that's going to happen, not just in basketball, but in other sports around the state. And then spring sports are here. I mean, practices have already started. Gym space is already being taken up. Let's see what Mother Nature is going to allow, usually in these spring sports, anything that's scheduled for March or early April, unless it's, at the Woodside Complex or somewhere that has a dome, those events usually aren't happening. But head over to boundwisconsin.com. And we will have baseball and girls soccer coverage there this spring. Thursday. Now, started with the D3 session. Coincidentally, the Badgers were playing and losing to High Point in the first round of the NCAA March Madness. Coach's suite was filled. I had a couple coaches message me beforehand and are like, hey, what time do the doors open? I want to make sure that I get in there quick enough to get to one of those seats, because in the coaches' suites, they have the little TVs where plenty of people are watching those March Madness games. But in that early morning session, we had Seymour kind of flex its muscles against St. Croix Central, and then Lake Mills and St. Catharines. By far the best game of that Thursday slate. So let's hop into it one by one. Seymour, I mean, in that game, they looked dominant. They did. It St. Croix Central played it close at half, but then Seymour just kind of pulled away there in the second half with the ability to, I've talked about it before and I've said this exact thing. It's kind of death by 1,000 cuts.
Well, I think the fact that St. Croix was unable to stop Isaac Fesky and Kyler Marks in that game. I mean, they combined for 40 points. Their size and the physicality there, like Fesky was just playing bully ball the entire game, getting whatever he wants. I think he was like 8 of 12 from the floor.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, like he was really fun to watch. I mean, they just dominated the paint in that game. And, when you get rolling like that and you get easy buckets inside, things usually go pretty well for you. And that's how it turned out.
I tell you, Isaac Fesky was one of the more impressive guys this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I saw them at the Deer District Prep Showcase. I don't remember how many he had in that game. I think he might have had double figures, but he didn't jump off the court as much as he did at state in both of those games. I thought he was outstanding, and he's just a junior. You can see the physicality that he has. He's not real tall, but he's strong and uses his body well. But he showed really good skills as well. He shot it well. He showed he could handle it, when needed. Not that he's going to be a primary ball handler, but was comfortable enough on the perimeter to handle some pressure. And he was absolutely a standout that was maybe one of the bigger surprises for me individually.
Yeah, I think it was Seymour that in the second half they shot like 67% or something like that, and assisted on a good chunk of those, made field goals. So they advance, and then they shot
64.1 overall, and I think
Then it might have been
determined,
77%.
well, overall, they shot
Yeah.
64% for the game, 77% in the second half. I think that was a new state record for Division II for highest field goal percentage in a game. So that just shows how efficient they were.
That second game in D3, that was by far and away the best game of that Thursday slate. I think we kind of all thought it would be. Looking at that slate, when we did our preview last week, we talked about how this could very well have been a state championship game. They're two of the better teams in D3. Again, what it boiled down to was that St. Cat's defense is just absolutely relentless.
Yeah, they were able to double up Lake Mills in the turnover comparison. They're 15-7. So that's something that's tough to overcome for sure. And it's kind of crazy too, because I know, like, I have talked to you, Colton, before about like how you beat St. Cat's, and like part of it is like being able to contain, and if you can keep Lamont under 20 a game, in a game, then you got a real shot. He hit 17 in a game, but there's just really balanced scoring with four guys in double figures for them, and just hitting some big shots, and like you said, just making really good plays defensively.
Yeah, AC Ward had a really big second half for them, I think. He ended with 13, and he had 8 or 9 in the second half to kind of help them pull away. But Lake Mills also, their rotation was short. I know they suffered an injury earlier in the year to one of their rotation guys, but a team that pressures the way that St. Cat's does, 90 feet for 36 minutes, it's very tough to weather that for 36 minutes if your rotation is 5 or 6 guys.
Right, and when your injury too is I think was one of their main ball handlers too. So that's a big hit when you have something like that. But speaking about Lake Mills, it would be a shame not to mention Brady Benish and his game.
Boy, oh boy.
Man, he was lighting it up. 26 points, but 8 of 16 from 3. That's what was one short of time the state record at a state tournament. And I knew how many he had the entire game because my son was sitting next to me and he was tallying it. So that was really fun to see my son really get into the game. And I actually had an opportunity to talk to Brady the following day, and I mentioned, I was like, my son doesn't know who you are, but he got to know who you were while you played for that 36 minutes, and he like fell in love with you for that portion of the game. So I think like that's something too to mention, is that these high school kids don't understand what kind of role models they are. And it's really awesome to see that from my standpoint as a dad, to see my son who loves basketball and get to watch him just get pumped about a game where he knows 0 players in it.
Yeah.
Just because there's special performances going on.
As someone who's not a father yet, I would, if you're debating whether to take your kid out of school for those 2 days and take him to the state tournament, don't debate it. Just do it.
Yeah, I don't feel bad for a second to do that. I took my daughter and my son, my two oldest, to the games, and they sat from the first game all the way through.
Yeah. Benish hit that, I think that last 3 that he hit, Lake Mills took a timeout right afterwards, but Jaden Phillips from Racine St. Cat's, this is one of my favorite moments of the tournament. Jaden Phillips is guarding him, and he hits it's a step back 22-footer, something like that. And Phillips just looks at him and is like, how?
He went up. Yeah, he went and dabbed him up after that. Yeah. Right away, he was like, "Oh man, like how did you do that?" Type thing. That was pretty cool.
One of the things that was really impressive about that game is that we've seen teams that pressure have a harder time to do it at the Kohl Center on the bigger court with more space. You have more ground to cover. Yeah. You have more ground that you have to run yourself to get yourself tired out.
Better teams.
Yeah, and better teams. And St. Cat's didn't let up. It did not impact them at all for 2 days. And they didn't play a deep rotation either. They played 7 guys on that first game, but Hamilton played 36 minutes. Most of the guys played a bunch, and that was extremely impressive. That was about as well as I've seen a team pressure at the state tournament consistently over 2 games that I can recall. So I mean, the amount of conditioning and up tempo practices and things that they must do to be able to do that is extremely impressive.
Well, I'm not trying to slight anybody else on their team, but I mean, when you have a kid like Lamont Hamilton, he is a full court press by himself.
Yeah, he is.
That guy is an absolute specimen. And we all know this, but basketball being his second sport, can't pitch being a multi-sport athlete more.
Yep.
Kids that are being told to specialize are being talked to by the wrong people, and they're listening to the wrong people. I don't care if you are a top-level Division I prospect or you are someone who is never going to play college athletics. The benefits of playing multiple sports, like, they outweigh anything else. And you can come and talk to me, and we can have a real conversation about that too. But like, I just don't understand it. Why people tell kids to specialize and stop doing things that you can only do one time in your life as a teenager.
Because it benefits the adult.
Well, then shame on those adults.
Shame on a lot of adults. Like, let's be honest.
Shame on them.
Moving on to that evening session, that D4 1 seed Bonduelle, 4 seed Cambridge. Cambridge just continued its roll. Chris, I think you texted me during this one, like the amount of 45-degree cuts. They were kind of getting whatever they wanted in that one. And then defensively, what they did during this playoff stretch, they held, I mean, Quinn Wesenberg and Carter Maish are 40% three-point shooters, 50% from the field shooters. In this game, they held them to 6 of 24 combined and 4 of 16 from 3.
Yeah, some of it is probably some of it could be, just the point of just being there, and there's some nerves and stuff that go into it, but usually the kids snap out of that pretty quickly. So, I mean, you got to tip your hat to the defense there a little bit. The game plan put together by the Cambridge coaching staff for that game and the state championship game was very, very good. It's very, very obvious to me sitting in the stands the direction in which they were trying to go in both games, and just how well all of those kids have bought into what's going on over there in Cambridge. Being a 4 seed and making a run all the way to the state title game is pretty special, and something that those kids are never gonna forget. And Jet Horton even talked about it during his post game presser after the championship game about how he's just, I can't believe that if you'd have told me back in October that we were going to be sitting here right now and I got to play in the state championship game, I'd call you an idiot, is what he said.
Yeah.
That's what it's about, right? Making memories, and they definitely did that. But yeah, they're defensively, they did such a great job. Like the way that they help each other, the way that they cut on offense, and set each other up, and it doesn't matter who scores for them.
Correct.
Man, like that's special, and that's not something that every team gets. Most teams don't get that. It was just really fun.
Their run the last 4 games in sectionals and at the state tournament, I mean, beating Darlington, Lomira, Bonduelle in order, and then taking Milwaukee Juneau to the end, incredibly impressive, especially when you consider they lost their last 2 games in the regular season. It's not like they were on a heater, coming down the stretch. They did perform a lot better in the later part of the year after Christmas than they did before, but they lost those 2 games coming in. And, talking about kids, how about to us, the kids on the coaching staff at Cambridge, are any of those guys 25 yet? Alex Rainey, what was he, a 2000 or 2020 or 2022 high school graduate, I think?
No, because he played college ball.
Or did he graduate from college in 22? Maybe that's what it was. But, I mean, none of them are – that's a young staff. And it's obviously a very talented staff. And that's a staff that's got a lot of potential.
Alex
he's
was
a 22 alum of – yeah. Yep. Okay. 2017, man. I still remember him playing in high school and how good he was.
And he was on I believe he was on one of those state teams for Lake Mills. But yeah, I think Charlie Bender's on that coaching staff. He was with one of those Lake Mills teams. He was a couple years after Alex, but young staff, they get after it as far as their preparation has to be great.
Yeah.
Just looking at what they did defensively and over the last month of the basketball season.
Yeah, and you can just see the passion on the sideline with Alex and the things that he does. I mean, he is in a stance. He's sliding up and down the sideline. He's yelling things out to his players, and he's the first person to try to get a kid's attention when something doesn't go their way. And he basically, because I was paying attention to that stuff, and he was just basically like, next play, and he would smile at him and say something, and then the kid would nod and turn and get back in get his head back in the game. So I think that he just did such a great job getting those kids to buy in, and it goes so far beyond basketball that people really truly don't understand like where those relationships are at inside of that program. And man, the joy that all those kids and those adults on the sidelines were having with one another is pretty special.
Yeah. That second D4 matchup, we had Regis and Juno. And this game was a lot closer than I think that 18-point mark says. I mean, Juno really pulled away there in the last probably 7-8 minutes. But, I mean, Blake Rissler and DJ Cooper, they were putting on a display at times, shooting the ball and scoring the ball for Regis. And while all weekend it kind of was a Dooney Johnson showcase, we'll get into the championship game, but Takis Tyler, and from my perspective, he was kind of the one that grounded them and then kind of answered the punches there in that this game, at least against Regis.
Yeah, 9 steals between Dooney and Takis in that game alone. I think Juno for the tournament were super close to the record. I don't remember what their number ended up being. I think the record's like 30. I was trying to pay attention to some of that stuff that get thrown up on the jumbo screen, but I think they were at like midway through the state championship game. I think they were at like 24, 25. So they came pretty close. But I mean, those guys defensively, their length when they're engaged and they're working their butts off in the passing lanes. Oh man. But Tyler, he's another kid just like Lamont we were talking about, where he picks you up in the full court. If I'm the coach of the opposing team, I'm like, do not bring the ball up against Takis Tyler.
Yeah,
somebody else come and get it. His hands are crazy good, and then his ability that night to finish at the rim and just get to the cup at will was really tremendous. And he was that second punch to Dooney Johnson. Obviously, Dooney going off for 27, and had a stretch there where he just kind of took over the game. Because Jaden Hardman was a little quiet in that game. He was not in the state championship game by any means. No. But like the ball handling again from Regis, they really struggled in the open floor. They had DJ Cooper did some really nice things, and he's a young kid being a sophomore. Did some nice things obviously for them offensively, but struggled to take care of the ball against that pressure. But I guess that's one heck of a learning experience for a young kid.
Yeah.
To play against defense like that.
This had nothing to do with the game, but my favorite part of this one was the drum line. We got a drum line at halftime. Juno brought out a drum line, and if you weren't there, you didn't see, but number 15 for Juno, who suited up, I am going to butcher this name, but I'm going to try. Tiowalasi Oni was also in the drum line at halftime, wearing his jersey out there in the middle of the drum line. It was awesome.
Yeah, and that's what it's about, though, right? Like, I mean, some of it, you're a student athlete, and honestly, he probably obviously is in a class where he's getting a grade to do that at the state tournament. I mean, that's probably a performance that, hey, this is going to be a graded performance. Like, your attendance is mandatory. It was like, well, I'm playing in the state tournament for basketball as well. And it's like, well, hey, guess you're not listening to the halftime speech.
Hey, we've all seen football players that play in the
Yep.
marching band at halftime. So
Yep.
Yeah. That was Thursday. Friday morning was awesome. I think it set an incredible tone for that day, though I don't know if we necessarily got everything we wanted out of the rest of that day. But I mean, the D5 tournament as a whole, the 3 games in D5, where I thought were some of the best, and I thought this first game with Reedsville and Sheboygan Lutheran was either up there for the best game, or I mean, we'll talk about Appleton North Madison Memorial also kind of in that conversation. But boy, oh boy, was this one! If you would have watched it, I wouldn't have watched this game and been like, "That's D5." Pace was awesome. Scoring was awesome. There was shot creators in Ben Prochnow and Brennan Hackbarth. Like, there was a lot going on in this game that you could tune in and be like, man, I really like the product of basketball that is on the court.
Yeah, it was a really fun. You talked about the pace. You mentioned the pace. The pace of the game was really good. It's a lot of fun where teams getting up and down the floor. I love watching that type of basketball. But starting with Sheboygan, like with the Hackbarth kid, going 11 of 16 from the floor. He's just getting buckets out there, and having a double double, 32 and 11, doing things on both ends of the floor. That's a lot of fun. And then obviously like I don't know how to say the kid's name. The last name is it Liebham?
Oliver Liebham, yeah.
Liebham. Okay, sorry. But he's also 10 of 16 from the floor with 23 points. So, like, the scoring punches were there. The little bit difference we talked in previous games about the kind of just the spreading out and the 4 or 5 guys in double figures type thing. Like, they had 2 guys, but they scored, they're scoring 55 points between the 2 of them. So that's pretty special when you have guys that you can go do to that. And I was really impressed, though, with Ben Prochnow and just everything that he does on the floor. He shot the ball 26 times. And, say what you want about his field goal percentage that game. He didn't shoot the ball well from 3 at all, obviously going 0 for 8. But he shot 26 times but still had 9 assists.
Yeah.
It tells me that he's making the right decisions. And he's just really good. He's more than willing to pass, but he's a shot creator, and it doesn't matter if it's for him or if it's for his teammates. And he also is a really good rebounder, and the ability of him, and I can't believe that I'm actually saying it. Anybody who knows like what we do offensively knows that we're not big on mid-range jump shots, but when you have people that can hit those shots at a clip of 47% or higher, which he's capable of, you let those kids take them, and he did a really good job there. I was really impressed with him, just like his ability to get to the basket, and even the fact that everybody knew he was going to go with his right hand most times. His ability to change pace and direction and then getting back to where he wants to go was really impressive, I thought.
Yeah,
he's going to Lakeland, right?
I believe so. Trav,
he's going to be really good there.
We got one of the best moments of the tournament in this game where I think Sheboygan Lutheran went up 1 with about 17 seconds left, if that. And quick inbound, no timeout. Prochnow takes it up the length of the court, left-handed. Goes up for a layup. Guy kind of cuts it off. 360 layup, which, I mean, almost any other kid, you're like, why did you take that? Even with him, it's almost like, why did you take that? But he took it. He made it. And that kind of was the game played out after that a little bit, but hitting a 360 transition layup to go up 1 in a state tournament game with 13 seconds left.
That's like probably watching you in a men's league game, Colton.
I don't know if I could get a full rotation in.
It was pretty special. It was the thing that impressed me with Prochnow as much as anything was his vision on the court. Mm-hmm. He was making passes and attempting passes that most guys don't even know. Yeah. They don't even think to throw. They don't even attempt to throw. So that was really impressive. And obviously that finish We got a great finish. That was a great finish by Ben Prochnow. Not probably the kind of shot that they would have preferred, but he was able to execute it because he's been he's been in that position. He's handled the ball a ton. He's comfortable with the ball and comfortable making kind of off platform, off balance type of shots and finishes. As a smaller kid, that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
When he's playing in the club scene, I mean, that's the kind of stuff you got to do to get the ball in the hole. You're not making the same finish every time. So, if you're going to take a shot like that, that's the kind of kid that you want. And it was a great game to come down the stretch. As you said, it got us into a good environment right away for that day. And just an impressive performance all around.
When a D5 game gets the coach's suite excited, when it gets that general public excited, that usually sets a pretty good stage for D2, D1s in the afternoon. Second game started out. This one was a little bit. We had said in our preview that the Reedsville Lutheran game was going to be played in the 70s. This game was going to be played in the 50s or 40s, and it really felt that way in the first half. I mean, the offense was slow. It was a defensive battle. It was 26-19. To also say, it was Southwestern Prentice. Southwestern was up 26-19 at half, but then we got the pace quickened. The shot making was a lot better in the second half. Obviously, 26-19, I think those teams shot a combined 28% in the first half or something like that. Second half, 89 points combined. So the final score ended up being Southwestern 69, Prentice 65. And even in this one, I mean, Southwestern was up double digits with 5-6 minutes left, and they felt pretty in control. Prentice's big man, Aiden House, went out with, I don't know if I ever saw confirmation. I'd assume it was a concussion, though. He got hit in the head pretty early in the first half. He only played, what did he play? He played 10 minutes in that first half, and he was a kid that was averaging 17 and 8 for them. So, yeah, this one ended up being incredible down the stretch, thanks in large part to, Evan Lord started making some big shots. Hardy Huckman from Prentice started hitting some big shots.
Hardy Huckman had 22 points off the bench. I don't know if we've ever had a 22-point game for a bench player at the state tournament. So that is incredibly impressive, and obviously picking up the slack for House going out. It was fun in that second half, and Prentice made it a game. Just didn't quite have enough to get over the hump. They shot 16 for 16 from the free throw line in that second half, though. So they tried all they could to stay in it, just not quite enough with House going out.
Yeah, I mean, I really did think that there for a little bit that Southwestern was going to run away with it when they got it up to double digits there. And I was like, okay, well, here we go. But then, Prentice really battled back. And again, like you said, having one of their best players come out, go out with an injury, and for the Huckman kid to come in and play 27 minutes off the bench and throw in 22 points is pretty impressive. And looking at the numbers from this game, what were they? They were a combined, 10 of, what is that? 42, 10 of 42 from three. So it's a game that was won, at the free throw line, and just getting to the basket. And the fact that, again, like you said, I think it was Travis, right, where you said they were perfect in the second half from the free throw line.
Yeah.
But 22 of 24, holy crap, that's filling it up. I don't think I've ever had a team go 22 of 24 from the free throw line. But just the different types of scoring that was going on, and the change of pace in these games is just nuts. Like the game plan change at halftime for both teams was much different than the starting game plan.
Yeah, and it also helps though when kids see the ball go through the hole. Like if you go a whole half, and I don't have the numbers pulled up right in front of me right now, but if you go a whole half and score under 20 points or score under 30 points, like seeing that go in the second half, especially early on, it can really jumpstart an offense. after D5, we got D2, and it started off with 1 seed Slinger, 4 seed McFarland. This was a huge tale of two completely different halves played in this one.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, Eli Kruger looked like he was the dominant force the whole game, but he had 17 points and 6 rebounds in the first half. It was very difficult he was kind of getting what he wanted. If he got it within 2 feet, he was scoring or getting an opportunity, creating a scoring opportunity for one of his teammates. McFarland actually took a 30-28 lead into the halftime on this one. And then Slinger kind of reared its head, outscored the Spartans 55-26 in the second half to score an 83-56 victory. Coach, you're pretty familiar with that Slinger team. Jack Conan had quite the second half, had quite the showcase. Bryson Fogel, I thought was, you've seen him enough. I know he's a really good player. He obviously, when you have Jack and Joey Conan on that team, he kind of takes that third seat. But, in this game and even in the championship game, he was kind of the catalyst in a lot of those moments for the Owls.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Fogel is a type of player that is very capable of doing what he did at the state tournament on a consistent basis. The difference is he didn't necessarily need to all season, right? He wasn't asked to do that. And that's something to note too about this Slinger team and just the resilience of some of these kids. Like, you want to take, for example, Brett Palm. His first 2 years playing varsity basketball for Slinger, he was much more of a focal point. The last 2 years, he has not been that.
Yeah.
He averaged 8 points a game this year. It was simply because he wanted to win, and he understood that, hey, we got to get Jack Conan the ball, we got to get Joey the ball, and we got to get those guys shots. And those guys were so great at buying into what Coach Levine was trying to preach to them, just making sure that the team came first and doing a good job that way. But Jack was a different type of good that night.
Yeah.
35 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists, 5 steals.
Efficiency.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, Trav, you've talked about how you've seen the McFarland team twice. Eli Kruger, no joke. You had made the comment or even the tweet that or maybe you said it on here a couple weeks ago that you think the offers will get a little bit more for him. He's got some mid majors right now, and I think you're right. Garrett Krall is a solid point guard for them, but once Slinger kind of ramped up that defensive intensity, the supporting cast around Kruger struggled.
They did, and that's a team similar to Slinger. Both teams really rely on their two main guys to initiate offense, to initiate opportunities, to create scoring opportunities. The rest of the guys kind of feed off of those, right? And we saw how that went for Slinger the other way in the championship game, and that's kind of how it was for McFarland in a lot of, especially the second half of that game, where Krieger and Kroll got theirs a little bit in the second half. They had 17 combined, but just not the opportunities and not the ability to create opportunities for the rest of the group. And Slinger clamped down on the pressure, and you could just see that it was going to be tough for McFarland to get going. And man, I think this game kind of was a little bit of a hint, right, of what we could see in that championship game, where Slinger was as good as you could possibly be in that second half, but a team that was a little bit streaky at times, and it was on full display in Madison. That second half for Jack Conan was as good as we've seen a player play in a half. He had 23 points in that second half, 4 rebounds and 5 assists, 3 steals in the second half alone. That's an outstanding performance for an entire game. And then we saw the other end of the coin, obviously, in the championship game. So, it was good to see McFarland get that opportunity to show what they could do on the big stage. A lot of young kids on both teams. The top 4 players in this game, the top 2 on each side, are underclassmen coming back next year. So, two good teams that we could be talking about again next year.
Yeah, I do want to mention one other thing too here is that Colton, you had said that the Krieger kid had 17 and 6 at halftime. He ended up with 6 rebounds.
Yeah, that was I mean, the intensity that Slinger played with on the glass and
And
everything was.
I think someone who deserves a shout out there too for that game was is Jude Sakarla, and just the way that he played in the second half defensively.
Yeah.
I think he kind of got owned a little bit in the first half, and I think some things might have been said to him at the break where it's like, hey man, you got to be a lot more physical, and you have to utilize your size and length against this kid, or he's going to continue to eat you up. And he did a really good job. I mean, he understood that like his fouls, like if they were fouls used in the right way, like that's going to help us win this basketball game. And he was really physical in that second half. And I think he ended up with what he ended up with. Let me see here. He had 5 rebounds, 6 points, 5 rebounds. I mean, again, that's a kid who's not asked to do much offensively at all, but he did a really good job of stepping up and being a big factor on the defensive end for them, which allowed Jack to really get after it then.
Coach Levine's second half adjustment where Joey Conan started on Krieger to start, and then when Jude came in, he switched.
Yep.
They literally were hip to hip with Krieger the second that McFarland either inbounded the ball so they were just hounding him the whole way. I think Sakarla got called for a foul at half court at one point off the ball. So they were just kind of making it where, hey, we understand that Eli, you're the focal point of this offense, so we're going to try and wear you down as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, you saw where he got the ball every time in the first half. It was right on the block.
Yeah.
Second half, he was 10-plus feet out from the basket every time he touched the ball.
Yeah. That second matchup in D2, another team, Chris, you're familiar with, Whitefish Bay. They won over West Salem 64-58. This was a game that was back and forth pretty much the whole time. West Salem held a 6-point lead at half. West Salem had size. Whitefish Bay had speed. That speed eventually wore down the West Salem offense. They struggled to get the ball up the court as the game went on. Their guards, the West Salem guards, they struggled against Mace Miskell. They struggled against Marcus Webb, Colin Julian. I mean, those three alone have just such incredible hand speed. The hand speed of those three is incredible. So while West Salem had the size, Whitefish Bay had the speed, but this was an awesome D2 semifinal game.
Yeah, a lot of fun to watch. It was again another game where tale of two halves, right? West Salem goes into halftime up 6, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then Whitefish Bay kind of wore them out in the second half and kind of got after it. But because the slow start by Bay was pretty, I would say, concerning. I would say at the beginning. Thank goodness for Mace Miskell scoring 11 of their first 11 points of the game. I mean, he was the one who came out super aggressive, was getting after it, creating a couple turnovers for them to get some scoring opportunities there. But because Colin Julian kind of struggled a little bit early on, but then when he got it going a little bit better in the second half, things were really good, obviously for them. But there's just some big shots made down the stretch by guys in the second half by Bay.
By both teams.
Yeah. I mean, Marcus Webb hit some really big perimeter shots. He was only 2 of 7 from 3, but the 2 threes that he hit were pretty important.
Yeah, Whitefish Bay went to a 1-3. I think it was a 1-3-1 with about 5 minutes left in the first half, and or not Whitefish Bay, West Salem did, and Whitefish Bay couldn't shoot them out of in that first half. Webb came out and hit a couple. Colin Julian hit a couple corner threes to come out in the second half. Kind of made, I think West Salem then started switching between man and that zone. But boy, what a fun game. Trav, you talked about the kid from Prentice, the Huckman kid coming off the bench. And we talked to Coach Brad Reiner on Thursday night, and he talked about Elliot Corcoran from West Salem. And Elliot came off the bench for the Panthers and had 17, 5, and 3.
Yeah, it was an impressive performance by him. And it was a 6-point game, but there was a couple times where it was a single possession game in the last minute and a half of that one. So it was maybe closer, I guess, than what that final score would indicate. But it was another impressive performance by West Salem. I think they surprised a lot of people. They were a 4 seed in their group, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, took down Onalaska, La Crosse Central, just to get to state. So and let's not forget they're D3. They're playing up. I mean, they're a big D3. Their enrollment's like 597. They're right on the edge, but impressive nonetheless for what they were able to do, to move up a division and continue to compete well, and I think exceed a lot of expectations. Coming out of the Cooley Conference, I think we talked about it in the preview. That's a D3, D4 conference.
Yeah.
Compared to Whitefish Bay playing in a D1, D2 conference. That's a big jump.
It is.
And they held their own for sure.
Yeah, Tyson Lavis, that West Salem group, they hit a couple of those big shots. I'd be remiss not to mention Tyson Lavis. He had 23 points and 5 rebounds. Big kid. I think he's going to, is it UW Stevens Point or UW Superior he's committed to. But he hit a 3 that was 20 feet out. And then Nathan Dillabar out of West Salem. I don't know when exactly it was in that second half, sometime in the last 2 minutes. He pulled from like 2 feet in front of the half court mark and buried it. It was that thing was deep, and he didn't think twice about it. But Whitefish Bay ended up, I think they made like 5 of 6 free throws down the stretch to just close that one out.
Yeah, they did a good job of closing that out there. I had an opportunity to talk to Lacrosse Central coach Todd Ferget kind of about West Salem a little bit during that game, and he just said, he's like, man, Corcoran really came on at the second half of the season. Was a kid that was their X factor, a kid that they thought, obviously easily could have been a starter for them, could be a starter for them, but I think like that explosiveness and that scoring punch and just everything he brings with his size, his length, his scoring, defensively, everything right off the bench for them is just a huge spurt for any team, right? Like you got that coming off the bench while having 5 really good starters already. Not every team has that, and I think that was something he mentioned, that he's like, man, that's why they were able to make the run all the way straight through, into the state semi, because that kid was really playing well, on top of their normal guys that had been all year.
Yeah, that evening session, we hop into D1. This was arguably, wish the Sheboygan Lutheran Reedsville game. This might have been like the most well-played basketball game I've watched in person in a long time, between Wisconsin Lutheran and Appleton North in that D1 state semi. Wisco came out with a 68-61 win, their closest win against a state team, I think, all year. And between the two, there was just 9 turnovers. Appleton North shot 51% and 38%, and their shooting splits was 51, 39, 67. Wisco was 60, 56, 79. It was just a beautiful game from start to finish in this one.
2 really good basketball teams for sure, with a ton of talent on both teams. And you got, how many 4-year varsity starters are on both those teams?
Well, just one on Wisco. They've only got one senior that starts.
But you know what I'm saying? I'm saying as a whole that are going to be, when they're done, 4-year varsity starters. Like it was very apparent that there's just a lot of basketball savvy, knowledgeable kids that just play a ton of basketball at a very, very high level. Extremely good decision making. And just shot-making ability. When a shot needed to be made, it got made. And you just mentioned all the splits, man. It was really fun to watch.
Trav, you've watched a lot of basketball in your years.
Does that mean you're old, Travis?
Yeah. That was an old joke. As far as like just the overall cleanliness of a game, this has to be up there with one of the top ones you've watched.
Yeah, it was extremely well played, and there was high efficiency offensively for both teams, but it's not because the defense was lacking in any way, shape, or form.
Correct.
It was highly competitive. Everything that every player did on that court was competitive. Everything they did offensively, everything they did defensively, every cut that was made was contested. It just was really well played, really clean played. Wisconsin Lutheran had 5 turnovers. Appleton North had 4.
Yeah.
There wasn't a ton of fouls committed. It was just really clean, really good, really well-played basketball. And as I posted, Appleton North had 4 turnovers, shot 56, 48, or excuse me, 51 and 39%, and lost by 7. I mean, that's how perfect you have to play against Wisconsin Lutheran to be in a game, and how much more perfect you have to play to beat them. But Appleton North, I said it before, and it played out. Although, I mean, obviously Madison Memorial, we'll talk about that later, but I think Appleton North was best suited of all the teams at state to compete with Wisconsin Lutheran. They had enough size to be a bother inside. They had really experienced players throughout. They had perimeter players that could handle. They had shot makers that could create opportunities and finish. So they were well positioned to challenge Wisco, and obviously we saw that happen. But absolutely, it was one of the more aesthetically pleasing games we've seen. It wasn't super high scoring. Wisco, I can't remember. There was a few dunks in that one, but it was just really good to watch if you're a basketball fan, and us as watching games from a coach's perspective in a large part. You just saw a lot of things that you really liked, and you saw kids just make plays over and over.
Yeah, for that North team, for as undersized as they were, because when you're going up against 4 guys that are 6'6" and taller, you're undersized. And almost, I would say every team in the state is undersized going up against Wisco. But, the shot-making ability of Nathan Ramos and Matthew Ross Plichowski for
that kid's really
Appleton
good.
North, and then Will Sweeney's ability too, where he is well undersized even compared to those other 2 wings, and he is just a little pitbull of a guard for the Lightning.
I don't know what kind of talent Appleton North has coming with their younger groups, but hopefully they have some help for the Ross Pachowski kid, because he's special, man. He's really, really gifted. His shot making ability is super fun. Like, there were times where he would get to the basket and he'd be coming up, and 2 guys that are 6'8" are coming at him to try to block his shot, and he's able to maneuver around or over the top and still finish.
Yeah.
There just aren't kids that can do that, and at a consistent level, and he showed that. I mean, he was 6 of 11 from the floor.
Yeah. Before we do hop into that second D1 game, do want to talk about hop back into the D2 game, in that Slinger game where the Conan connection on that off the backboard in transition lob. Someone who was closer on that side of the rim goes, Joey was just yelling it off the backboard as he was going down the court, because they were that far. They were 2 feet apart from each other going down the court, but it was a fun lob that got the Cole Center going a little bit.
Yeah, that's always something that when we play against Slinger, it's like we got to make sure that we're not giving up dunks like that, because it just absolutely brings like the level of fan excitement for Slinger, or just that team to a level where it's really hard to bounce back from.
Yeah. Second game, Madison Memorial and De Pere. We've heard rumblings. We heard the rumors that Coach Collins was stepping down after this year. He confirmed it in the post-game presser from Saturday night. But so he got, say, state tournament run in your final season as a coach. The first half, Memorial was up 33-32. Then they kind of pulled away. I mean, Anthony Miller, boy, oh boy, was he light it up from deep. He tied the record for D1. He broke the 2-game record, tied the 3-game record for threes in a state tournament in D1, came 1 short of the overall state tournament. He was 6 of 8 from 3, 8 of 13 overall on the floor, 22 points. What impressed me most about Anthony was the leadership. He was constantly lifting his teammates up. He worked his butt off on defense. They ran a 2-3 or a 3-2 that kind of dropped into a 2-3. Anthony Miller balled out in this one, and even in the state championship game.
Yeah, he can fill it up.
Yeah, this might be Steve Collins' best coaching job in his last year. I mean, when we've seen him at state before, and this was, what was it, number 11 overall, I think, appearance at state. They've had multiple Division I scholarship guys most of the time. In fact, they might have had 3 or 4 or 5 on some of those teams.
Yeah.
So they had significant talent. And there's good kids on this Madison Memorial team. Anthony Miller is a really good player, but they're not Division I basketball players necessarily.
Anthony Miller is also not 6 feet tall.
Yeah. No. What was he listed at 6'2"? Is that what it was?
On Bound, it says 6 foot.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. He's like 5'9", man.
I think in the state roster it said 6'2", even maybe. But this is just a lunch pail type of group. It's not the overwhelming talent type group that Madison Memorial has had talent or has had state tournament runs with before. But Coach Collins got everything out of every one of those guys. This was a run for the ages for them. I mean, if they played this run multiple times over, I don't know they could play better or as good as what they did in the three halves, the first 3 halves of the state tournament.
Yeah.
Just incredible how well they played. They did everything the way that they wanted to, the tempo they wanted to, the places they wanted to. They hit the shots that, were sometimes the shots they wanted and sometimes were just seemed like heat checks that just found the net.
12 of 17 from 3 as a team.
They played as well as you can play for the first 3 halves of the state tournament.
Well, and 10 of those threes came from 2 guys, right? Caleb Ligon was 4 of 4, and Anthony Miller was 6 of 8. And mind you, they're doing it without one of the Ligon twins, right? Playing too.
Yeah.
He has is it a broken wrist? Is that what it is? Either way, I mean, when you have one of your starters out, because I'm assuming then the freshman would come off the bench. I don't know enough about them, I guess, that way. But, I mean, you'd be starting 5 seniors, right? So, like, if you're going to make a run, there's something to be said about having senior-laden team, man. And when your entire roster and rotation consists of seniors, and, it says a lot. I mean, they played they had 4 seniors and looks like 4 seniors, a freshman, and a junior, pretty much, that played all their minutes.
It's a
pretty experienced group.
That same can be said. We've seen De Pere at the state tournament. We've seen the talent that they've had in the Kinziger brothers, Will Hornseth. They don't necessarily have that with these groups. They have a couple kids. Will Kruger will be a kid that will be D2, maybe low D1. But they've got some other D3 kids. But this was a group that was, 4 seniors and a junior in their starting rotation. They've had that experience of playing and practicing and being in the program with a De Pere team that, has had a lot of success over the last few years. So, Coach Collins had a really good run, and this is probably his best coaching. I think probably the same could be said for Coach Winchester up in De Pere.
Hey, shout out John Kinziger, having a game winner today against, was it Wake Forest in the NIT?
Yeah, I saw that.
Good for him. Maybe he'll be a Badger next year.
He could have been last year.
Yeah.
He went into the portal and then, or did he not? Did he go into the portal and come back out, or there was talks of it maybe? But
I don't think, because once you enter the portal, I don't think you can. I don't think you can come back. Can you?
You can go back to the school that you're at. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's uncommon.
Yeah.
Let's hop into championship Saturday. Final day of the basketball season. An awesome day of basketball. The games as a whole weren't probably what everybody wanted. Again, I think that the 2 games that stole the show were in the first 2 levels, the smaller 2 levels. D5, Reidsville Southwestern. We had the storyline of Reidsville won that state championship game. Was it 1946 when it was all classes? I think I saw the story that the Prochnow kids' great-grandfather was a part of that team, and now they're looking to get that state tournament for Southwestern. I think they were there in 88, never won a state championship. I thought we were going to get another similar to that Reidsville Sheboygan Lutheran game here. The first half, the score was 35-33 at half. The
Yeah,
final score ended up being 56-48. So we had quite a dip in shot making in that second half, but Ron Prochnow. Before we get into this, I do want to touch on the Reedsville Sheboygan Lutheran game. I had so much fun from a coach's perspective watching Ron Prochnow call out sets and Ben, because they had, 20 or 30 sets. They had so many sets, and Coach Verhagen was just sitting there calling out the action, and his assistant coaches were calling out the action and mimicking it. And there was a time where Ron called out a set, and Coach Verhagen, Nick, looked at him and he goes, "Yeah, I put that one in this week." It was just such a good moment between coaches on the sideline.
Yeah, the problem was in the first half that it didn't matter if they were calling them out or not. They weren't stopping each other. So
correct.
You can call out plays all you want. If you're not going to stop them, even when you know it,
yeah,
doesn't really matter.
That's something we tried to talk about earlier this year, and Chris didn't want to talk about it, of plays and changing plays and how many you have and all that stuff. But I think that's something I'd love to dive into in the offseason, how that works especially as you progress in the tournament and you get more scouting and more availability of film and all those kinds of things. How people start to adjust, and whether it's changing calls, changing how you call them, changing play names, whatever it might be. That was absolutely, Colton, a great example of that.
Yeah, I love those chess matches. But now getting back into the D5 championship game, Reedsville ends up winning it, and it was a steady dose of Ben Prochnow again. He finished with 19 and 8 assists. But then Arden Stren, who had been, the running mate of Prochnow all season, he had a double-double in 20 and 14. They did a really good job of winning the rebounding battle, especially in the second half over Southwestern.
Southwestern just could not hit a shot in that second half. 0 for 12 for a team that was trying to come back, that was trying to, that does shoot a decent amount of threes. That's just not a winning formula when you get that ice cold. And you could see as that second half went on and they started to pile up miss after miss, and they're trying to stay in it and battle into it. And it seemed like they got a little tense, a little anxious, pressed a little bit on some of those shots, started aiming instead of just letting it flow. And it just snowballed into a real bad second half, shooting the ball that didn't allow them to get into it and make it that kind of back and forth, close finish like we thought was brewing.
Yeah, Southwestern never really got it to that one possession game, I don't think, late, right? They get a bucket, but they couldn't string together a stop and a bucket following that bucket. So,
yeah, I thought early on in that game, it might have been the first couple possessions, right, where Jack Schwann hit 2 threes early, right? And I was like, okay, well, the people I was sitting with, we were kind of just chatting and talking about, like, I wonder who the X factor is going to be today. Like, is it who's going to make some shots? And all of a sudden he hits their first 2, but then he really kind of struggled after there. But that's when the Stren kid just absolutely dominated the paint. And then he stepped out and hit 3 threes as well. And when a kid like that is going to be able to play inside and out, I'll say it, like, he was by far the best athlete on the floor that day.
Yeah.
Wasn't close.
Yeah. 80 years in the making, though, for Reedsville. And Coach Prochnow gets very animated on that sideline. And it was fun to watch him see, like, as the game got to that point where, Reedsville was going to win it. He was pumping up the stands. He was getting jacked up for his kids. He's a guy that's very animated on that sideline. And I can appreciate that.
He now has a state championship on the boys and the girls side, right?
Yeah, 1996 he won one with the Augusta girls team, I believe.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Joins Tom Weinkoff, who won a couple state championships with the Marathon boys, and then or was it 3 in a row maybe with the Marathon boys actually, and then a couple with the Newman girls, and Jim Myers, who won 6 or 7 with the girls and then switched over and won with the boys at Barneveld. So 3 becomes a third player or third coach to win it on both boys and girls side. Shane Smelling had a chance to join him, but West Salem went out in the semifinals.
Yeah. Hopping into D4, this is where this game, the moment obviously kind of took over the internet. We'll hop into it, but before we do, it's Juneau and Cambridge squared off, and Juneau fell to Cambridge in a regional final last year. Cambridge ended up beating them, moved on. I think they lost in the sectional semis or sectional finals. But after that, after Cambridge won in the semis, I don't know if you guys saw it, but the Juneau kids were clapping. Not like, hey, you could tell that game was kind of still on their mind. Even in this one, you could kind of tell that game was still on their mind even in the press game conference. But boy, oh boy, did this one come out, and just it showed again Coach Rainey and their staffs what they have done down the stretch. Cambridge actually led 32-30 at half. Despite, I think Dooney Johnson had 16 or 17 points in the first half. He kind of was showing out, but Cambridge did a really good job of using Juneau's aggressiveness on the wings and in those passing lanes against them. They hit almost any backdoor they wanted. They ran that dribble weave into the backdoor a few times for a layup, including, they came out of the halftime, ran it, got it, executed it, just ended up missing the layup. But that, and again, those 45-degree cuts off those baseline dribbles where Cambridge succeeded. Jet Horton, who has kind of been the engine that willed, he's the senior leader for this Cambridge group. He got smacked so hard in the nose about a minute and a half into this game, sat out for like a minute, and then came out and buried a three, ended up with 14 points. So buried a three on the very next possession. In the post-game presser, he's like, I think I might have broken my nose. So a gritty performance came from Cambridge.
The Cole Center went wild when he came back in the game and hit that three. That was that was awesome. That was a moment straight out of a movie, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, but Cambridge in that first half, Dooney had his own. Boy, oh boy, when he wants to get somewhere with the ball, he can get there. Coach Rainey talked in the presser about how they weren't, gap sound very well in the first half compared to the second. And it showed. He finished with 23, he had 17 in the first half. But yeah, Cambridge, that their execution of what they did in that two-day span to get ready for this one, it showed in that first half. Trav, any comments before we're going to hop into the eventual topic of hot conversation?
Nope.
All right.
I thought too, the big deal for Juneau, especially in the second half, was just Hardiman getting loose.
Yeah.
And his athletic ability.
He was 15 in the second half. He finished with 17 points. He had 15. Jaden Hardiman had 15 in the second half. Yep. He was 5 of 5 from the floor. I want to say 4 of those were dunks.
Not just like your everyday he dunked one. No, they were emphatic dunks. He was trying to dunk on people. It didn't matter who was in his way. He was destroying the rim. He's a special type athlete. And I just felt like needed to be recognized for sure.
He was 5 of 5 from the free throw line. They buried a lot of free throws down the stretch. Where Tucky's Tyler had a really good semifinal game. He struggled to find the bottom of the net in this one. He did a lot of other really good. He does a lot off the ball defensively. That is really good for the Pioneers. But yeah, let's hop into the storyline that came out of it. At about the 9-minute mark, Juneau is up. I believe it was 44-42, something of that sort. It was a 2-point game, and they held the ball at half court for 3 minutes. Booze rained down. Cole Center came alive, so to speak. And then Cambridge came out, pressured just a touch, and it looked like Juneau had turned it over right in front of our bench. But I think right before that, Torrey Johnson ended up calling a timeout. That possession lasted another minute. I think it was a 4.5 minute possession. Ended in a and one putback dunk by Hardiman, where Juno
That
went
was
up
super
5.
sick, by the way.
But let's talk about it, because this Carl Winters put a video out on Twitter that just went absolutely viral. It usually the shot clock conversation sticks within our borders. You'll kind of have those outside the outsiders come in, but this took off. It was viral. It was, if it was on my For You Twitter, like that's the only thing I saw following this game was the conversation around the shot clock.
So let me dive into this a few things. Number one, as we all know, it takes 2 to stall, right? Alex Rainey told his guys to stay back. They were begging him to let them go out and pressure, and he said, no, we're good, because
he was happy with it.
And that was
He had to have been.
1,000%. That was 1,000% the right decision.
Yeah,
I agree.
And it was interesting because we talked about this. Dan Barwick mentioned it. Like, usually the better, more talented team doesn't stall, and that's what Juno was doing, which goes a little bit to the idea that Cambridge was doing what they wanted to do and making Juno and their staff really nervous about what that game was going to look like if they just played it out.
There were levels of confidence that were swaying from one side of the floor to the other, and Juno felt it, and their coaching staff needed to do something, they felt like, to get the momentum back in their favor. And when you have a kid like Takis Tyler handling the ball, and this is what you alluded to, Colton, too, right? He didn't score much, but they sure as hell respect him with the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
And even when Tyler would start to take a step towards they're going to come out and they're going to go now, right? And he would just hesitate. I mean, they're flying back, right?
Yeah.
So, it was a very tactical moment in the game, and something I felt like Juno did to try to regain momentum. But at the same time, when you're Cambridge, Alex Rainey is not stupid. It's very obvious that he knows what he's doing on the sidelines. Yeah. And what he did, because his players, like you said, were yelling to him, let's go, let's go, let's go. And at one point, he told, who was it? It was the kid who had to change. Was it number?
Ian Nellis, I think.
Yeah, that's who it was, Nellis. And where he basically just put his hand, he's like, relax.
Because let's be honest, that stalling that Juno was doing was more beneficial for Cambridge.
It was. So I mean, let's talk about that, right? We knew Cambridge was a pretty big underdog coming into this game.
Yep.
And if you're going to tell me that we're down to with what, 8 to go?
9
10,
to go? I think.
Okay. And you're down 2. And the team that's winning, like Travis said, right, that has the better athletes, it wasn't hard to tell that. It wants to back off and take, I don't know how many more possessions you're going to get in 9 minutes, but if you're playing in a normal pace of game, it's going to be a lot of possessions. And you want to cut that to 25% of the amount of possessions that are going to happen then? You mean to tell me I can keep my guys fresh? Yeah, they're going to get fresh too. They're going to get a little breather. But if I only have to play, let's say, take it to if instead of 10 possessions, I only have to play 3. Yeah. Okay. I'll take our chances with that. And it was a really smart move by Rainey to not have his kids go up. But then they had a plan when they came out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure that I believe that Juno got that timeout in time.
It was right in front of me, so I obviously couldn't see.
Not to mention, probably should have been an offensive foul called on a hook before he stepped out of bounds, and then all of a sudden the whistle blows and there's a timeout. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That's all I'll say about that situation.
Just talking about it from where it hit the Twitter sphere and it becomes this vacuum and this cesspool and this echo chamber of people that have no idea about the teams involved, no idea about the fact that, that was a beneficial thing for Cambridge. Oh, go out and play defense.
Here's
shut up. Go ahead. Not you. I'm not telling you to shut up. I'm telling the people on Twitter
No,
to shut
Travis,
up.
he was
That was
telling you to
bad
shut
time.
up.
That was bad
telling you to
timing.
shut up.
It's like when I'm talking to my kids, and so here's the stupid thing about all of this, that when it went viral, right? I saw some things on the internet talking about that Juneau stalled in the previous game, and that's why they won. Like, just factually incorrect stuff. Number one.
Mhm.
Number
Yeah.
two, there was 54 points scored in that second half.
Yeah.
There were probably 8 halves at State that had fewer points than that. So yes, it sucked. Yes, I hate stalling. I would never do it personally like that. I understand why people do it. I would never do it. I hate it with a passion, which is interesting.
You would never
because
do it to help your team win a gold ball.
I don't.
You'd
I
rather
don't think
lose. You'd rather lose the state championship game.
You're assuming that stalling causes you to win, and I would argue the inverse the majority of the time.
Well, I mean, we're not to that game yet, but I will completely flip the script and say that when Racine St. Cats pulled it out the number of times that they did it because they knew that if they pulled it out and Seymour had to come out and guard them, Lamont was going by them, and that's exactly what happened. So
We'll
they're
get into
different.
that. We'll
They're
get into
different.
So I would never play like that.
You got to use the rules to your advantage, and if you think that that's giving you an advantage, then
that's fine. I'm not arguing that people do it. I'm saying I would never do it, and I personally hate it, which is, again, interesting considering my views on the shot clock. I understand that. But there was a lot of action in that second half and after that event. I think 3 or 4 of Hardiman's dunks came after that. Like, people that weren't watching and were just read
no idea,
misleading, had no idea what actually happened in the game. The way that some of the things were framed,
just call out these dumb accounts on Twitter.
You would think that there was stalling for 18 minutes of that second half.
Yeah.
It was bad, and I'm glad that there was booze raining down, but it was a couple minutes that were the issue, and then it was high-paced action after that.
You know what was cool, and you guys both alluded to it too, and like Colton, I know you talked about this a little bit as well, but like when you said how like the matchup was last year, right, and how it ended, and then the clapping and stuff, right, at the state tournament after Cambridge wins, this turned into a little bit of a rivalry, right? So like the fans from both sides, not just like the neutral fans where I was sitting, but the fans from both sides, you could tell like the tension was there already. Obviously, there was more fans there from Cambridge. It was very clear to see that there were more Cambridge fans there. But you could like people were really revved up for that game, and then you give fans, and like I said, the booze came from where I was sitting too, and I was right, pretty much at half court there, and the booze were coming from everywhere, but it was like there was already that type of energy in the gym between the two teams. You could feel it, and then it gave everybody a reason to like get really loud. And it made for a super exciting last 4 or 5 minutes of that game because everybody was on the edge of their seat because they're like, who's going to be the ultimate benefactor from this? And it ultimately ended up being Milwaukee Juneau. And like, I didn't think they needed to pull it out because I thought they just needed to like maybe call a timeout and be like, listen guys, we have some crazy good athletes. Let's attack the rim because we know that they can't guard us at the rim. But hey, to each their own.
Like, I like the purity of basketball, so I'd like to say that I wouldn't stall too, but you're looking to get a state championship gold ball, so I don't know what I'd do in that situation. So do I fault Coach? Hold on. Do I fault Coach Johnson whatsoever? Absolutely not. He did what he thought that it would take for his team to win, so they did it. It's within I guarantee. I mean, he said it in the post game that he wants a shot clock. Coach Merg has talked about wanting a shot clock, and she stalled a little bit right in the D1 semi. There's plenty of people that are pro shot clock, but you know what? They're also pro winning a go ball.
I'll bite my tongue on that.
That's fine. You can, but you
don't have to.
If you ever get into that situation. And it's a choice that you and your community and your kids get the opportunity where you're up 8, let's say, because I think up 2 installing is, I mean, that's crazy. That's I think more of a story than anything is the fact that Juneau did it up 2. But being If you're up 8 against a team that has superior talent and it's 5 minutes left in the game, shot clock's not there. Come defend me.
Here's a couple questions that I have. Number one, if it's so much better to do that, to stall like that, why doesn't every team do it in every game when they get up by 6 points with 10 minutes left?
I have an answer.
By that thinking, then that's what you should do every game that you're up by 6 with 10 minutes left.
So again,
that doesn't help you at the end of the year.
Who on Cambridge was going to steal the ball from Takis Tyler? That's the big answer to your question.
You say that, but you also just said that he might have turned it over right after that.
Yeah,
but stealing from him, yes, I don't think
he was not very smart in the decision that he did to try to dribble straight to a corner and then up the sideline where there's no space. Okay, like that's a whole different thing. But so Torrey Johnson had very, very high confidence in the fact that like they can't steal the ball from us. Again, like that, and like we can take as much time as we want off the clock here. And to be honest, I would be willing to bet that if you asked Torrey when that obviously he got granted the timeout, but if you were to ask Torrey if he had to do it over again and he saw the trap when he saw him sprinting at Tyler, I guarantee he would have been like, well, I should have been 2 seconds, 3 seconds earlier on the timeout anyways. That's my fault. Because you don't have to use many timeouts in the state tournament, FYI. You get one taken away, but there's 107 TV timeouts during the state games, which is annoying as hell. But
this is one thing with regards to like what happened to on Saturday is these conversations are completely fine with me. We're on different sides of the aisle, but we were there. We knew the situation. You know what's happening. What just drives me nuts is when it hits these social media platforms. And for instance, some college thing said, "Oh, don't have your kids coached by Torrey Johnson because he does this." There were other ones that came on that argued that a few other arguing points that I care not to get into, but that were just off base. And it's like,
people just
they look at a clip and then they look at a clip and then they become what I like to call an agenda warrior, where they get
trolls want to troll, man. And like, to be honest, like.
But I don't think it was trolls.
The best thing that you can do, though, in those situations, and there's too many people that are on the other side of this, the best thing that you can do in those situations is just ignore it and not say anything to it.
I don't think these are trolls. These are agenda warriors. There's a difference between a troll who wants to troll you and call you fat or stupid or something like that, and then there's an agenda warrior where something will happen and that fits their agenda, so then they get on their big push on social media.
But then those agenda pushers, right, they use the trolls to their advantage.
Sure. They agree with them.
Yeah. Right. Well, they're going to agree with them because, like, it's platform for both of them at that point. Yeah.
So here's my other question, getting back to this as well, is why do we see this so much more at state than any time else during the year?
Because it's time to win.
Why does it? What's that?
Because you're trying to win the very final game or the very final.
I understand that.
The reason why you don't see this as much in the regular season is what does stalling do to prepare me then for a game later in the year where I'm down or I'm up or I'm something like that.
Also, there's a lot more eyes on those games than any other ones. I can guarantee you it happens very consistently during the season. I will tell you right now. I'll tell you right now.
Okay,
it was for what?
Let's define stalling as well. I think that's important, right? Like in every game, if you're up by 4 with 2 minutes, you're waiting to get fouled, right? Or shooting an uncontested layup, right? Mm-hmm. What we don't see is 10 minutes left standing with the ball at half court, which is what this was.
Yeah.
I understand they're related in everything, but to me, they're very different things as well. There's end of game.
I don't have the best example, I guess, but like just because of what the score was at the time and like, but the situation. One thing that sticks out to me right away is like we had a game this year right before Christmas, and we had the flu bug going through us bad, right? So we were essentially playing with 5 varsity players that night, and it wasn't a 2-point game, but it was 6.5 minutes left in the game, and we were substantially up enough, and we pulled it out because I wanted to get the heck out of there and not get an injury and just keep the clock running, make those 6.5 minutes go by really quickly, so we get out of there and move into Christmas and get healthy. And it worked out really well for us. Sometimes, like, again, like Colton said, you're doing what you need to do in the moment where you think this is the best thing for us right now, and this is what we need to do.
You were not at the Juneau game that they played at Hartford, right? Against
Howard's Grove? I watched it, yeah.
So that was a close game as well. Did they stall with considerable time left in that game?
No.
They played some other close games. They played close games in that Milwaukee City tournament against South and Hamilton. Both those games, well, the South game was in the high 80s. The Hamilton game was in the mid 70s. Like, it just,
I do think that Juneau was super shell shocked. And I'm not, this is not anything I'm trying to say negatively about players or staff, but like, in the moment, I don't think Juneau knew exactly what they wanted to do. And for whatever reason, they didn't want to call a timeout. Like I said, I would have just called a timeout, gathered the troops, and then go dominate the last, 7 minutes of the game. And I think they were trying to, because there was a lot of like rustling going around on that Juneau bench at that time. And I think they were trying to figure some things out. And then all of a sudden it took them off guard because they thought they were going to have more time, right, to take off. And then Cambridge goes at him with that trap. And like I said, I think he was late calling the timeout. I think he would do it differently, obviously, again. But I don't know. I just feel like in the moment, like there was a little bit of hesitation on what to do.
The crappy part about this is that it takes away from, what I thought was a good basketball game. It ended up being a good basketball game. It was an 8-point win.
And it didn't naturally come into like, hey, we're going to stall, right? It wasn't like a natural stall. There was a lot of things going on. They weren't getting where they wanted to go and stuff. And all of a sudden, Tyler just like randomly pulls it out to half court. And then it started.
I do agree that it was like one of those in the moment.
Yeah.
Like, oh boy.
Again, like you said, Travis, like I don't think like, I don't know how to say this, I guess. Like I don't think that was like in the game plan to like just be like, oh, we're going to stall at this point if we get up this much, or it's only a 2-point game. Like, I don't think that was going to happen. I don't think that's what they were planning on doing, because like you said, like they didn't do it in any of these other games leading up to it. I just really do think it was like heat of the moment decision that occurred, and they just decided to do it. Because it wasn't like play call to pull it out, right?
Yeah, I
do.
Know.
It was a weird situation.
It ended up being
people not knowing all the context of it.
That's where my frustration is.
The three of us don't even know the context to it.
Correct.
We're talking about it,
but we're closer than 99% of the people that are talking about it on the internet.
Oh, there you go. Now you're gonna piss everybody off.
I don't
saying that we
know
more than them.
Twitter is not real life, so that's why sometimes I just wake up in a pissy mood and just get into the weeds, and then sometimes I just don't choose violence and I stay out of it. But there are times like around certain topics where sometimes I just decide to choose violence on Twitter, and I don't know why. But it is not real life. Those people that are in that, they have
But it did get picked up at a larger level, like all the BS aggregators and clickbaiters and engagement farmers. I mean,
hacker writers were talking about it.
My wife sent me a thing from Burl Bible, which is like the ultimate clickbait aggregation thing. The headline was Milwaukee Juneau defeated Regis by a final score of 72-54, blah, blah, blah. The score might have actually gotten worse if there was or got even more out of hand if there was a shot clock. I mean, again, that was the wrong game that it happened in. So,
but
I love it.
Back to the game itself. Juneau wins. Torrey Johnson wins a game with his kid at his alma mater. It's the first state championship for a Milwaukee public school team since, we said 2004, right? 2004. So that moment is pretty cool because, I mean, it's been a while for the Milwaukee public schools to kind of get back, and usually, we're seeing those teams in D1 and D2, but regardless, like getting that win. My favorite moment personally from this game was Jade Hardiman, who had, that monster second half, his brother and his younger brother, I think his name was Ashton, he's a sophomore and freshman, he got out onto the game for the final 9 seconds, and just seeing Jaden just sprint out there to enjoy that moment as the buzzer sounded with his younger brother. That was my favorite moment from that.
Yeah, he's a freshman.
Being a Sap.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that the story of Dooney and Torrey, doing it at Torrey's alma mater. Dooney could have gone anywhere in Wisconsin.
Technically,
Dooney could have gone anywhere in the country. Dooney could have done a lot of different things. That he stayed there and with the guys that he's played with, and they got it done. I think is a great story. The MPS angle is interesting. Obviously, I mean, it's not like this is Milwaukee King in Division I. Let's be honest. It's a D4 title. Good to see MPS having more success, but. And Juneau could absolutely play with D1 and D2 schools and could have played with a lot of the D1 and 2 schools we saw at State. But, breaking the curse and all of that stuff, I'd be more inclined to give that a little more weight if it was Division 1 or 2 that happened in, just from the MPS angle.
Yeah.
Fair.
Long talk on D4. D3. St. Cat's, Seymour kind of been a juggernaut all year. Lamont Hamilton showed out in this one. He was 11 of 15 from the field. He had 26 points, 7 boards, 5 assists, 3 steals. And again, we got to see that St. Cat's defense kind of really, really cause problems. They forced 17 Seymour turnovers. They were undersized, and they played that shorter rotation. But boy, oh boy, they were getting out in transition. They did a lot of what they did against Lake Mills to Seymour, 2 teams that, again, with regards to Lake Mills and Seymour, that fundamentally and team-wise are very good teams. But St. Cat's ball pressure and perimeter defense just caused havoc.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be interesting. I thought Seymour would be able to handle that enough to take advantage of the advantages they had with size and interior presence and those kinds of things. But St. Cat's didn't let them get in position to really threaten. I mean, their guards were constantly 25 plus feet away from the basket. They couldn't take advantage of their size. They couldn't use their size to penetrate. St. Cat's just completely took all of that away and was, again, as impressive defensively and impressive in a 94-foot game as we have seen at State, and obviously ran away with things. In Lamont Hamilton, I mean, talk about big game guys. A couple of years ago in the state championship game, had I think 4 touches and 4 touchdowns or something like that.
Yeah,
and just another huge performance on a big stage.
Yeah, I mean, Seymour had one heck of a year, and I think what it boiled down to was the fact that they had never seen athleticism, quickness, and full court pressure.
Team-wise, correct.
Yeah, like what St. Cat's could put on the floor. I mean, they stifled them. And it was very, very clear that Seymour could not get into any of their things in the half court. And when they did, it was 5 to 7 feet deeper.
And you could tell, like, where Fesky and Marks, have dominated around the rim this year. Some of their just 2-footers were just sped up because of how the half court possessions were initiated.
And it was sped up not because of what was happening up contesting high.
No.
They would catch the ball and there was 8 hands at them
immediately.
The ball was at their waist when they're trying to go up, and they struggled to finish because of all of that pressure just down low.
There was a play where there was a little high-low, like natural high-low that happened where Fesky had a guy sealed, and they threw it over the top, and he went up to get it, and only he was going to be able to go up and get it, and he got it, and when he came down, Lamont was like 25 feet away on the left wing. He came flying, and 2 hands just ripped it out of bounds.
Yeah.
And like the body language of Seymour after a while was just, we are beaten down and tired. There were timeouts where Seymour was just like relieved to be able to walk to the sideline, and guys were like just huffing for air. I mean, they had to work so hard just to get the ball across half court. And, again, like I said before, Lamont Hamilton, he is a one-man full court press. And it was cool to see. There was a couple like teenage kids that were sitting around me during that game. And the one kid, just with probably like 6 minutes to go, he's like, I can't believe that Hamilton is still out there full court pressuring every single play, and he just doesn't slow down or get tired. How is that possible?
That goes for all of those guards. Like, give a shout out to like Eddie Vincent Jr., Antoine Ozier, Richard Watson, Jaden Phillips. Those guards for St. Cat's, it's relentless.
They move, man. They move, and they anticipate so well off the ball and just get to the spots they need to. And when you think you have them beat, they just hustle, and sprint to the middle of the floor and then scatter. And like you said, the ball gets to the paint. There are just too many hands in there creating distractions and getting deflections.
Yeah, there was a time in this game where, we thought we might have had back-to-back stalling. I don't necessarily consider what St. Cat's did as stalling. They pulled it out. Seymour came to play, and they used that space and attacked downhill. I don't know if any of those St. Cat's possessions ended up being over a minute long.
St. Cat's
came
was toying with them. He knew that as soon as they gave them space, and they were down by enough too. Seymour was down by enough where they couldn't sit back; they had to go up, and St. Cat's knew it. So they're like, "Well, we're gonna space out like crazy. Come get us because we're gonna go by you." And that's exactly what happened too. Like, they're just the elite athleticism and quickness from St. Cat's is the big story there, and why this game ended up the way it did.
Yeah. Heading into our night session, D2 and D1, the first game, Coach, two teams that you have played 4 times combined this year in North Shore action, Slinger and Whitefish Bay. Slinger came into this one with 2 wins over Whitefish Bay by a combined 3 points. They'd won the conference by 1 game over Whitefish Bay. So, I mean, there's storylines aplenty, right? The Whitefish Bay was looking to get that. Their girls had won state last year. Boys are looking to get 2 golds, or last week. Boys are looking to get 2 golds in 2 weeks. Slinger's looking to get their first ever gold ball. So the storyline was in abundance. Unfortunately, this game, I mean, Trav said it in a tweet, it fell a little flat with regards to the competitiveness of it. Whitefish Bay was up 12 at half. They ended up winning this one by 31, 77-46. It was that the Whitefish Bay they sat in a 2-3. Slinger could not shoot it. They couldn't throw the ball in the ocean, so to speak, and Whitefish Bay just kind of wore them down and frustrated, especially, those playmakers for Slinger.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate when in the most important game of the season you end up having your worst output, right, of the year.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, again, the one bright spot for them was Bryson Fogel,
Yeah.
Mr. 20-point guy at state, right? He played really, really well, and he tried his darndest, man, to keep them in it for a while. But I mean, I don't want to take away from what Whitefish Bay did. Their zone defense is really, really stifling at times. And it was for that entire time during that game.
They move and rotate so well.
So usually, you think of teams that play zone, right, as like, well, they have size and they have length, and they're gonna be able to take away the paint that way, right? That's not the way that Whitefish Bay plays their zone, because they don't have the size and the length. They just have speed, quickness, athleticism, and kids who are really heady, just getting to their spots and rotating, right?
Yep.
And they do a really good job of matching up in that zone the best that they can. And they make it really hard and make teams really push you and play outside, because they really try hard to take away the middle of the floor with the way that they defend it. always having that opposite side guard coming in and taking away the high post guy, which allows then your bottom guys to really rotate in a lot of different ways to kind of like just mask and cover everything up. And unfortunately, right, Slinger wasn't able to find like the right type of movement and ability to get guys in spots to be successful. And any adjustments they made, it just always seemed like Whitefish Bay had the next adjustment for them that was a little bit better. And then obviously second half, Slinger really started to just chuck some things up because they had to, and they were still missing. And then Bay got some leak outs, and an 18 to 20 point game gets away and gets to 30.
Yeah, as a couple numbers that really stuck out to me in this one. They're different. Coaches must have gone in and adjusted their box scores, but for what the WIAA had at when stats were input, Whitefish Bay was undersized. When you look at the Conans and when Jude Sakarla is on the floor, Whitefish Bay won the rebounding battle. And according to the WIAA stats, they had 42 points in the paint as opposed to 20 for Slinger. That number is pretty eye-opening. And I think a lot of those are those transition layups that they get leak outs on, but still, 42 to 20.
Yeah, but you play Whitefish Bay, man, like that is their goal. Paint, 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 paint. That's what they want to do. And they have guys that, like I talked about the mid-range shot earlier, they have guys that love to get to that 10 to 12 foot mark, and they hit shots from there. Like Miskell loves getting in there. Webb loves getting in there. And I'm going to give a guy credit because he doesn't hardly get any credit because we didn't talk about him yet, I don't think at all. But Jack Broderson, 23 and 10.
Yeah.
So he is the 10 of 13 from the free throw line. He was 1 of 3 from 3, 6 of 10 from the floor. He's a kid that when he had a matchup with Brett Palm, he realized that he had a size and strength advantage. And what he does every single time he gets a matchup like that is he goes straight to the block. And he did that a couple times and scored, which just opened up everything else for the other guys. And then he hit a three. They were 6 of 11 from 3, 54%, but only shooting 11 threes. Like they got to the cup a lot. And it was because it was guys like Jack Broderson opening up for everyone else to kind of get there. But you look at their scoring, they kind of had all their guys hit their marks there.
It was a full team effort for Whitefish.
It was. It really was.
Defensively, offensively, Trav on the Slinger side, they've obviously got the two Conan brothers who are in their class, one of, if not the top player in their 2027 class, in their 2028 class. And they struggled. And they struggled to find rhythm, especially towards the second half in those games. In that championship game, it seemed like their legs weren't necessarily underneath them. A lot of shots were coming up short. As a team as a whole, Slinger was 5 of 33 from 3. So, when a team runs the zone against you, you want to be able to shoot them out of it. Slinger couldn't get that done.
They couldn't, and it would have been better for everybody, obviously, if we would have seen Slinger shoot or play to their ability or potential. Because shooting like they did, there's zero chance that you can be successful. We saw what they could do again in especially the second half of that the game in the semifinals, and would have been good to see that for obviously a more competitive game. But it was a little bit like the Southwestern game. We talked about it. You alluded to it earlier too. Kind of a snowball effect of, oh gosh, we're behind. Now we have to continue to shoot the three to shoot ourselves back into it. And that can work great sometimes, and it can also shoot you completely out of the game, and that's exactly what happened with Slinger. And they got pressured. As you mentioned, Mace Miskell, Marcus Webb really put the pressure on, turned them over a few times, got some leak outs, steals that way, and it just turned into a no contest on that particular night. Again, we saw Slinger win a pair of one-score victories over Whitefish Bay during the regular season. So this was a very out of character performance for Slinger, but it would have been nice if we could have gotten a better shooting night that would have made that more of a game and see where it went. And you hate to see blowouts on at the state tournament and a state championship game. You want to see players and teams playing, to their ability. And unfortunately, we just didn't get that out of Slinger in this one. Just again, snowballed downhill. You could see, like you said, Colton, their legs looked heavy, shots looked heavy, shots looked a little rushed at times. The kind of the body language when they didn't go in, it went downhill and obviously really went downhill towards the end. So, again, a bright spot. Bryson Fogel had a great game. Whitefish Bay really impressive and did cap off that double gold ball for boys and girls, which is pretty unique as well.
Yeah, I think both of these teams are going to be pretty solid next year too. A lot coming back on both sides. For Whitefish Bay, they're kings and queens of D2 this year. They have gold balls in Division II on both the boys and girls side. So you get a full year of that. Final game of the 25-26 season, we saw Steve Collins in his final game coach Madison Memorial against the behemoth and the monster that is Wisco. Now, the first half was very intentional, right? It was 22-20. Madison Memorial was up at half. This was only the second time this season that Wisconsin Lutheran had been down at half. Second time in 30 games that Wisco had been down at half. Where Memorial wasn't necessarily stalling, their possessions were long.
I was just going to say, I was like, I hope everybody is aware of the fact that stalling looks different
Correct.
At a lot of different times. And it was very, very very clear to see that their goal was to have extremely long possessions unless Anthony Miller had an open shot.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because Colton and I saw Coach Collins in the at the Kohl Center after their game on Friday night. And he made the comment about, just talking about how they would probably slow it down and whatever. So I was a little worried of how exactly it was going to go. And then Madison Memorial came out and chucked up a couple threes within the first 10 seconds of their first few possessions. But they did obviously slow it down and try to control tempo, try to elongate possessions and limit total possessions. And they did an incredible job of it for that first half.
Even into the first, what was the score? It was 34-30 with 9 minutes left. So that pace stayed that way for.
Yeah, Memorial only had 8 turnovers.
Yeah.
They did a really good job of taking care of the basketball.
It stayed that pace for 27 minutes of the game, and then something that kind of turned the tide where Wisco went on their run is, I believe it was a Ligon missed layup. Zenz took it the length of the court and got I don't know if it was an and one or just a transition layup, and they went into a timeout up 6. And from there, Wisco. Am I here? Yeah.
Can I just say it, the efficiency once again by Wisconsin Lutheran. Kadra Knipple, 7 of 11. Xavier Zenz, 8 of 9.
Yep.
Jamel Sewell, right? 3 of 3. Kingston Knipple, 3 of 4. They shot 62.5% from the floor for the game.
And those 4 are 6'6" and taller.
Yeah. They were 6 of 15 from 3. Zenz was 4 of 4. And, Riley Walls had a rough shooting night being 0 for 5 from 3. But he did a good job of, he was open, and they were making him try to, he shot with confidence. He just was off the mark. He was another kid, right? We just talked about the last game. Legs may be an issue there because he was short quite a few of those.
He also was tasked with chasing Anthony Miller around the court. Yep, and where Anthony Miller, he finished with 12. He was 4 of 6 from 3. He also only took 7 shots. So Walls kind of, those closeouts were a lot tighter. He didn't allow Miller to necessarily turn the corner. So where Miller may have had 12 and it was an efficient 12, he only got 7 shots up, and that's because Riley Walls is guarding him.
When Xavier Zenz effective field goal percentage is 111.1%, it's not your night,
It's effective.
Well, we saw in the semifinal game in the first half that Madison Memorial shot at an unbelievable clip from
Yeah.
outside.
Yep.
In the first half, they only had 12 field goal attempts in the first half, but they made 8 of them. So they were 67% in the first half. And then second half, obviously they were down and had to chase some things and do some things differently, but they shot 21% in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So their hot streak, their luck, if you will, ran out a little bit in the second half, helped by a very good Wisco team that puts you in tough positions and makes you take tough shots. But they held on for a long time, and they stuck to the script for a long time too. I mentioned it, I think, on Twitter. There was 5.5 minutes left or something like that, or under 6 minutes left in a 12-point game, and they had a minute-long possession.
Mm-hmm.
So they stuck to what they were trying to do as long as they possibly could.
Well, and I want to say this, okay? Last 12 games for Wisconsin Lutheran, only one team has scored more than 55 points. And it was in the state semi. Who was somebody that we talked about as the team best built to, potentially beat Wisconsin Lutheran. They still only scored 61 points, right? And they played really, really well.
Yeah. Something we didn't touch on yet either was that stretch really got started by Zenz. Zenz hit a couple threes. Zenz had that transition layup. Friday, it was announced Thursday, but he was named Mr. Basketball for the state. I don't think it came as a shock to anyone. I don't think anybody was.
I got a few responses I saw that were critical, but overall, I think the vast majority of people were expecting and considered Zenz to be a clear winner.
Yeah.
He was clear cut across the board. Like, I know it's not a team award and everything either, but like, it helps when your team's 30-0.
Yeah.
But
and your efficiency numbers are what it is. And
yeah, for sure. Just to understand, like, everybody knows, like, oh man, like, Wisconsin Lutheran winning all these state titles. But like the way in which they do it, right? In the playoffs alone, they gave up 24 points, 18 points, 29 points, 46 points, 61 points, 37 points.
I think we've said it so many times that they can beat you literally in any facet of the game.
Prowess, man.
Yeah.
They have all the tools.
Well, let's talk about all the tools and what that means. They played a very good schedule. They the only thing they didn't do, they didn't play FBA teams outside of Appleton North, but they played non-conference games that were really good. They played Slinger, they played Arrowhead,
but they're not ducking anybody.
No, they're not.
You can look at it whatever way you want, right? Like you mentioned, they're not playing any FBA teams. Well, maybe they didn't want to play them.
Well, they also played 5 games out of state, or 4 games out of state.
Yeah, I think they were supposed to play De Pere actually, and they got out of that to be able to get into one of those tournaments. A few of those teams that they played, Pewaukee wasn't quite where they were the last few years. Arrowhead was solid, but not in at that elite state contender type level. But they beat George Rogers out of Kentucky, who was a state champion in Kentucky. They beat North Crowley out of Texas, who was a state champion, and I think it's the second largest division in Texas. So they should be in that conversation when you start talking nationally, and they are. They were number 10 at one point. They'll probably finish in the top 10 or top 8, something like that. So I pose to you guys and ask you guys, what does that mean? Where do we put this Wisconsin Lutheran team in the last, let's say, 5 years, 10 years, whatever number we want to use that we have been following things?
Personally, I think it's the best high school basketball team I've ever seen.
And you've said that multiple times, and I tend to agree with you. From top to bottom, I just don't feel like – I think could be – I don't think – obviously on any given night someone can get beat, right? But they just don't have many flaws, right?
I also really like the conceptually what Coach Walls does, like with regards to a lot of their possessions, how they're initiated and how they create advantages within that first 1 or 2 passes. Like,
it's not hard to create advantage though either. I'm not trying to. Coach Walls does a
fantastic
job, but it's when you have what you have, like it's not hard to create those advantages.
but he makes those advantages, that much closer to the rim or with
Yeah,
that
for
much more
sure.
space.
Absolutely. Um, man, they're just a really good high school basketball team. Like, holy crap. There's kids that probably I don't know much, obviously, because we don't see some of these kids play, but there are kids that are on that bench that don't see any minutes that would
Yeah.
probably play a lot of minutes for a lot of high school teams across the
Yeah.
state. There's something to be
Trav,
said about that,
I mean,
obviously.
the youngest Knipple basically doesn't play on varsity.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a kid that would play and start on almost every team
Yeah, and that's
in
what
the
I was
state,
alluding
regardless
to.
of division.
Yep.
Trav, you posed that question to us. Where does this rank for
I think the teams that would be up there, certainly the Stevens Point teams, and I told Scott Anderson this. We saw him. He did a number of the games on the TV, and we saw him. I told him, and I think I've said this before, that Wisconsin Lutheran reminds me a lot of those Stevens Point teams where you had obviously the brother connection, you had the size, you had multiple Division I players, the Hausers, Trev Anderson, and you had some other really good players. Drew Blair was around. Mm-hmm. The football player, I'm spacing on his name, he ended up going and playing football. I think he was around the first year that they won state, was a big physical kid inside for them. They had a couple other kids that were good complementary players, would absolutely be in the mix, and again, have similar styles where they can play at any tempo they want to. Yeah. If you try to force a tempo on them, they are fine with that because you can't speed them up. You can't get them rattled or out of what they want to do. The other group I think that would certainly be in the conversation that I saw was Germantown, where they had Zach Showalter, Luke Fisher, Dan Studer, I think was the other big guy that they had at that time. They had Josh Mongan. They had Lamonte and was it Brian Bearden as well.
Younger Showalter boy.
Yeah. Jake Showalter was on that team as well,
yep.
Or some of those teams. So they had tons of talent. They played – they didn't slow it down quite as much or try to control tempo quite as much. I mean, they really pushed and attacked a lot. That Germantown team did. They had the athletes, they had the size that would be competitive with Wisco. Those are the ones that absolutely come to mind immediately. There were some of those other teams that maybe even didn't win state. Like, what was the year Germantown, was it Milwaukee King they beat in a state championship game? It was like 72-69. I can't remember which year that was during their run, but that King team was extremely, extremely talented that I think would be, up there, even though they didn't actually win state because they were, again, they fell to the behemoth that was Germantown at that time.
What about even some of the Madison Memorial teams too?
Yeah, those Madison Memorial teams had so much talent.
Yeah,
Nankiville, Jerron Mayman, Vander Blue during that run, not all on the same team at the same time.
A lot of them were.
They were. The 1 year. I was just looking at this the other day. I think it was the year that they beat De Pere in that triple overtime game. No, it wasn't even that year. But, you forget about Junior Lamamba, Trey Burnett, Brendan Ortiz, Jamar Morris. And that was after Vander Blue and Jerron Mayman and Keaton Nankiville in that run. So individual talent, those would absolutely be up there. From a team perspective, I think Germantown and Stevens Point are the best comparisons. And I think –
that wasn't the question. Which one?
I'm getting there. Can you give me some time to do the PTI thing and pontificate before giving a non-answer? I would, again, I think those are the top three. I could see arguments in any direction. I think I might give us, honestly, I might give a slight edge to either of the Stevens Point or Germantown teams, because they had a little bit better guard play, I think, a little bit more strength on the perimeter. They had size that could compete. I mean, not the same size matchup, but it would be great. I wouldn't argue against putting this Wisco team number one at all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's last game of the year. Wisco goes 30-0, second time in 3 years. Second time in 3 years, Mr. Basketball has come out of Wisco. They're three-peating. And when you look at that team and who's coming back, it's pretty much everybody but Zenz. So While he is a huge, obviously, loss,
They're
there's
going to add
still,
pieces too, though.
yeah, there's
Because their
still,
entire program went undefeated.
yeah,
Just
their
to
entire
remind
program
that
went
again.
undefeated. Uh, insane. But another great state tournament.
Well, hey, let's stay on Wisco. I want to ask this question too, because I posed this on Twitter. How many? So Wisco has won 3 in a row, the last 2 in Division One. Next year they have a Knipple in every grade level. They're as you said, their lower levels went undefeated JV and freshman this year. So how many more consecutive state titles does Wisconsin Lutheran win over the next X number of years? How many? What number is that? Because I would put it more likely they win. I would put it more likely they win 2 or 3 than that they win 0.
Yeah.
Consecutively.
Yeah, what do you think that Vegas line is?
We're also in high school basketball where anything can happen. So I don't have my state championship. I don't have my. I'm pulling the Travis political answer.
I will say it. They will be favored to win a state championship each of the next 3 years minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Minimum.
I agree with that.
Whether they get there remains to be seen, but they will be favored. They will have,
and they'll be tested along the way by some teams.
Yeah.
In the state,
lose.
Sure.
I have no doubt that they'll lose a game, along the way, maybe a couple games along the way, because it's just hard to remain that perfect.
Yep.
The 70 game whatever winning streak by Germantown, or however you want to argue, what was it, Dominicans winning streak, whether it was or was not, whatever number that is so hard to do.
It is.
For such an extended
with teenagers
period.
Yeah, it's even harder.
They're going to play tough competition. Coach Walls is going to go out and schedule all those non-conference games against really good teams. They're going to be in some of those high-profile events in and out of state. So I absolutely expect that they'll have a few losses along the way. But if you ask me I'll say it right now, I think they will win the next 3 state titles after this year, which would give them 6 in a row, which again, I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago.
Clipping that.
If it wasn't for Pewaukee's incredible run of 3 in a row.
Mm-hmm. How many would it be right now?
Wisco losing 3 games in the playoffs in a row to them, we could be talking about, record-breaking potential for Wisconsin Lutheran, what they're doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, this is a very much a homegrown team. The Knipples obviously have been there forever. Zenz has been in that program. Walls, obviously, his dad is a coach there. But success invites and attracts people that want to be involved in success. So, will there be people, whether it's 6th grade, that decide, hey, I want to send my kid to Wisconsin Lutheran, or whatever else might be along the way, that's still in the mix as well.
Yeah. That puts a cap on it, though. That's 25-26. The basketball season is over and done with. Baseline, we aren't going anywhere. We do. I would like to take a moment just to thank everyone that's listened. I don't know if we've had a bunch of listeners, but hey, I talked to a couple listeners at the state tournament, talked to a couple people, throughout the year that have said they listened to it. And sometimes we talk way too effing long, which by sometimes I mean most times. We're gonna get to it, Trav. I see what you're doing. I'm not signing us off yet.
No, I wasn't trying to do that. I was just reviewing it. Sorry.
But yeah, it's been fun, Chris. I remember texting you. I think we talked about this back at the coaches clinic, and then it was like, all right, F it, we're doing it. And that was 2 or 3 weeks before the season started, maybe a month or 2 before the season started. But it's been fun being able to talk hoops. Moving forward, I don't know I think for the foreseeable future, we'll keep releasing on Monday nights or Monday mornings, recording on Sunday nights. We're going to be able to dive into Chris and Trav in our outline are just sitting there highlighting something like, hey, I get it. We're going to get there. Talking points for off-season talking points. We're going to be able to get guests in and have a little bit more in-depth conversations with coaches, with whoever we decide to get in. Maybe someone from the WIAA, maybe LeVar Ridgway, someone like that we can get in and really dive into conversations with. We're going to be able to get into some off-season talking points. We've hit on them in the season, but because of the fact that we're covering the basketball season on the boys and girls side, we don't get to talk at length with them. So stuff like the shot clock, tournament expansion. We'll talk about coaching changes that are coming in boys and girls. We see that turnover number. It's usually 100 plus coaches on both the boys and girls side. So 200, usually 250, 300 coaches new coming in each season. Players like in the junior classes, will they be sticking around? Will they choose to go to prep? Will younger kids? I mean, we're not going to sit and be a talking point about the transfer portal. This is not.
We're not going to gossip. Let's put it that way.
No, we're not going to gossip. But just as an example, when Vaughn Carvalho chose to go to prep, that's when those decisions get made. We are going to talk about them. Performance factor. There are teams that competed and did well again and are going to get moved up. And not only I think are we going to talk about that, but I think having an overall discussion on that. And, if it's something that we like individually, if it's something that we think is the correct answer with regards to what they were trying to accomplish with the performance factor, if there's alternatives, etc. And I think we're also going to be able to dive into, get a little bit more almost segmenty, where there's some cool segments that we can start putting into, whether it's weekly on the show. We did stat sheet stuffers. We did Trav's Trivia. Trav's Trivia I think we'll keep around, but there's other things that we're going to be able to dive into a little bit more in depth. We're going to have a little bit more time on our hands to get to stuff. So I'm really looking forward to what we're going to do here over the next, 6 months.
It's a lot of shows.
We'll see what it looks like when football rolls around, whether my participation will be available, but we'll see.
Oh, he's already copping out in August. Do you hear this?
That's all right. We can just talk to each other. We'll be okay, Colton. Travis can just pop in whenever he feels like he's available.
Yeah, it's not like we did this during all basketball season.
It's not like I just coached the basketball team for the last 4.5 months and still popped on every Sunday night and then watched film after we recorded.
Yeah, that never happened.
I'm just glad you guys let me come along for the ride, because Colton, when he first talked to me about this, was like, hey, you can come on and be like stat boy on PTI or
hey, just keep your camera off while we're going through most of the segments, and when we'll let you know when you should turn it on. We'll do the highlight thing in the outline. Hey, it's ready. See, he's sitting there. He's doing the thing right now. He's doing the thing, just sitting there. So here we are.
Somebody's got to bring the star power to this podcast.
If you say so. It's been fun.
It's been a really fun year. I've had a lot of fun doing this. I think you guys saved me from annoying my wife even more, talking basketball about with her and things she doesn't really care about. So being able to do this has been awesome. Honestly, it's like something I look forward to every single week.
Yeah. Chris, we even talked about it at the state tournament. I mean, when it's not recording, we literally sit on here for a half hour beforehand and usually half hour afterwards. It's been fun.
We should put that on a Patreon.
Pay to hear what we really have to think.
Yeah.
This one's not meant for the high school sports basketball.
Just so audience. Everybody knows, it's not explicit by any means, but
no, it's nothing like
it's
that.
It's not like that. Yeah.
But I've had fun. I would just say look for a lot more interviews coming out where we're able to actually sit down and flesh those out. Trying to get people from everywhere in the space. It'd be cool to get some star power interviews, whether it's a college coach in the state, whether it's a former athlete that, is either playing at the collegiate or pro level. But yeah, I'm excited. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we put an actual cap on the 2025-2026 basketball season in Wisconsin?
Nope.
One more plug to nominate players, deserving players for the All-Star game. Coach Smith is coaching in that game this year. Selections for the boys are coming up next week. The girls are still looking for some more nominations. They had some of their selection tonight as we record this on Sunday, but there's some divisions that have small numbers. So please nominate deserving kids. It's a great experience for those kids. They will make, I promise you, they will make friendships and connections that will last a long time. With people that they competed against or never knew before, that they will value that experience for a long time. So
it's a really cool week
in that All-Star game. Please participate in the All-State Banquet. If you're a player or a parent of a player or a coach of a player, please encourage them to attend the All-State Banquet coming up in April. I know there's some underclassmen that often skip out on that because they've got AAU every single weekend. But it is a real cool opportunity to receive your award and get recognized. And just for the coaches, continue to be involved in the WBCA. There's a lot of events coming up. There's important things that we'll talk about WBCA related. They're still searching, the search for a new executive director. There is the basketball coaches advisory meeting that's coming up in April that will determine the things that will be requested, including shot clock, state tournament expansion that we talked about. There's things on the agenda at the WIAA annual meeting in April that will be impactful as well. So there's all kinds of off-season stuff happening. Please stay involved. Please continue to communicate with your WBCA board members on these important topics, because it is going to be a very eventful off-season, not just for player improvement and coaching changes and recruiting and all that other stuff, but kind of, at the organizational level for the WIAA and the WBCA, it's a very busy and important off season coming up.
Yeah, that being said, we'll see you guys next week. And, I'll take this one. Get on the baseline.